Ladies and gentlemen, I now want to welcome you to my speech, which will revolve all around the topic of minimalist choices for maximal change. My name is Pavlina Trandafilova, and I'm currently a student here at this institute in the third semester of my bachelor's degree in translation studies. In the 20 years that I have been living here in this world, whether it be in Germany or in my home country, Bulgaria, I have witnessed enough to be able to say that our maximalist society may very deliberately lead to our self-destruction. Nowadays, we are being flooded with an oversaturation of all kinds of information. Our smartphones, advertisements, traffic lights, news, appointments, talks, requests, attacks. All of those foster the feverish pace and dynamics which engulf our everyday life. The pressure of consumption and the excess of material things are leading us to and trapping us within a vicious circle which will be very hard to escape for our future generations. What we barely realize is that all of this leads to a lack of spirituality and consciousness, a broken connection between our body and mind, a suppression of our own mental health, and the mental health of the people surrounding us. This phenomenon is especially frequent in our so positively depicted, modernized Western world. And Germany is definitely a part of it, whether it be in the good sense or in the bad one. In the past months, I have been taking a closer look at my surroundings and captured a few issues of our maximalist society which struck my attention the most. First of all, there's a saying I'm sure all of you have heard before: the more, the better. More, bigger, newer houses. More, bigger, faster cars. More, bigger, smarter TVs and phones. And even more toilet paper, to name a hilarious yet very recent example. However, do we really need all of this? And who actually tells us that we do? About every 10th adult in Germany is not capable of covering their expenses fully without falling into debt. In 2020, about 6.85 million German adults were encumbered with debts. Big corporations and even credit institutes profit from this. That's why the pressure to buy the latest gadgets does not and will never end unless we remain resistant to it. Another issue that I have observed is the heavy burden of obesity. In Germany, 2/3 of all males and over half of all females are considered to be obese. About 1/4 of the adults in Germany are highly obese. And the sad truth is that the tendency is for the numbers to keep rising, especially among young people such as teenagers and children. This will surely cause severe health problems for huge parts of the population in the upcoming years. And speaking about health, the last issue I have been confronted with not too long ago is the so popularly called syndrome of a burnout. 87% of the people in Germany are feeling stressed. 87%. That's an amount way too huge for such an unpleasant phenomenon. Every second person feels prone to getting a burnout. 6 out of 10 people complain of having burnout symptoms such as fatigue, inner tension, and back pain. And although I most certainly hope that none of you has ever experienced anything of such kind, I'm certainly sure that you know what I'm talking about. So, what does minimalism now have to do with all of this? In simple words, it's a way to rid oneself of life's excess and focus on what is actually important. Easier said than done, you may think. But what is actually important, though? Is it important to own a car? Is it important to have an own big house? Is it important to have a well-paid job? Is it important to have a huge and happy family? Or is it important to carelessly travel around the world without any worries and limits? I guess the answer to this will be individual for all of you, and there is nothing wrong about that. It is all about the moment in which one realizes that there is need for change. You mustn't necessarily be at your lowest when you get this realization. It is important to not go on suffering as soon as you realize something isn't right. Relate, rethink, react. Understand that small and minor personal choices bring about the biggest changes. For hoarders who suffer a personal crisis of consumerism, a sort of addiction to material things, minimalism can mean freedom from the passion to possess. For decades, we're being brought up the lie that the good life is found in accumulating material things, that happiness can be bought at a department store. What would happen if we sought or desired happiness somewhere else? What will happen if we start valuing relationships and experiences more? If we start investing in our soul care and just become more grateful for what we already have? Such minor personal decisions can free us from the trappings of the consumer culture we have built our lives around. We are addicted to accumulation. The minimalist lifestyle seems like a consensus way of approaching the world now that we have realized that materialism, accelerating ever since the Industrial Revolution, is literally destroying the planet. People who live simple lives aren't championed by the media in the same way like celebrities are. Corporations and politicians don't want us to know that happiness can be achieved in another way, but through consumption. They wouldn't benefit from us living a simpler life. And what is actually the reason for those high numbers of obese people? Amidst the stress and the pressure to work and achieve our materialistic goals, we forget that we are what we eat, and that processed fast foods are like poison to our body. Fast, unconscious eating of foods which are stuffed with more preservatives, colorants, and palm oil than actual nutrients leads to increased lack of energy and increasing numbers on our scales. Minimalist food or diet means to eat what you're down for and whenever you're hungry. It doesn't include deprivation, but rather the opposite. To give the body what it actually needs and to be in love with what you eat. Be conscious and don't leave food to be thrown away. Have simpler and basic meals prepared with local foods, since their quality is higher and the CO2 footprint in turn smaller. This is the natural way. Back in the days, people didn't have that many options, and they had to go for the simpler foods they could grow in their gardens. As a result, they had healthier bodies and weren't as obese. This is what I have learned and seen from my grandparents, and I know that I am not the only one. Deciding in favor of a minimalist diet can lead to a better mind-body connection, increased energy levels and satisfaction, and on a large scale, an overall decline in obesity. I have previously addressed the issue of the burnout syndrome and the immense number of people affected by stress and its consequences. 2 years ago, this affected one of the biggest role models in my life. My mother has studied veterinary medicine for years, ruining her nerves, sleep schedule, and psychological condition. She was fighting for years to get a job as a veterinarian in Germany. However, under the constant pressure at her workplace, the excessive workload, and the lack of balance, she suffered a burnout which stopped her from continuing her profession. Luckily enough, she had done the qualification as a yoga teacher, once she had found out about that passion of hers, and made this her new profession, as contrary as it may seem to her previous one. And you know what? Now that she has regained her energy, content, and motivation, she has even managed to combine both jobs and work part-time as a veterinarian and part-time as a yoga teacher. What an amazing combination that is. This kind of balance is not impossible and is nothing but a minimal choice which led to maximal change. So, is minimalist living boring? I personally think that it is crucial for young and adventurous people as well. Once we rid ourselves of the unnecessary, we are free to decide what will define our lives. Whether it be a hobby, sports, studies, or just dedication to family and friends. Some even travel the world full-time. There are no borders set and no clear-cut instructions given. But here are some simple guidelines to help you start. Don't let your job dominate your life. Go out and live in the moment. Create more, consume less. Focus on your health and rid yourself of the excess stuff. Grow as individuals and discover the purposes in your lives. Minimalism is about searching for happiness, not through things, but through life itself. It is about you determining what is necessary and superfluous in your life, and taking the minimalist choices which will lead to maximal change. Thank you for your attention.